We begin a review of some of the papers this morning with the Vanguard newspaper, which leads with top manufacturers list woes, incur 266 billion naira losses in 1 year. And the writers plan further price increase. Our cost of sales jumped 64%. That's according to Boa Foods. Economy grappling with cost-push inflation, that's according to Adori. NB, Dangote, others intensify backward integration. All of that leads the paper, the Vanguard newspaper, this morning. The Guardian newspaper is next. And what do you have on its front page? Used vehicles. Import slumps 32% as dealers trade safety for survival. Salvage titles. That lead story has some riders. 86% of vehicles classified as accidented. Clean used vehicles average cost $9,000. Salvaged car average cost in US $1,500. 70% plying Nigerian roads are used cars. Average repair cost of salvage car in Nigeria is $300 versus $2,500 in the US. All of that packed on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Go to Business Day, and it leads with Dangote diesel hits market in threat for European refiners. The meaning of that is better explained on the inside pages of the Business Day newspaper this morning. How about Daily Times newspaper? FG to roll out 2,700 CNG buses, tricycles before May 29. That story is on page 4. To deliver 100 conversion workshops, 60 refueling sites spread across 18 states. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the Daily Times newspaper. Daily Independent has this one about banks' recapitalization. Fear of injection of illicit funds into weak lenders heightens. What does that mean? Get the details on the inside pages. Ex-Nigeria Airways staff, 20 years after, FG yet to clear 34 billion naira severance package. Heartbreaking, isn't it? But the details you find on the inside pages of Daily Independent newspaper this morning. Blueprint has this one with 40-year term, 10-year moratorium. FG set to secure $2.25 billion World Bank loan at 1% interest. Target AFDB low-interest funding and Bretton Woods-funded electricity. Despite Naira stability, expect ups and downs. That's according to Cardoso. Find the details of that on the inside pages of Blueprint newspaper this morning. This Nigerian newspaper leads with inflation, how FG's actions fuel high costs of goods. The details of the story is on page 2. Experts, traders, consumers identify erratic border closures, insecurity of farmers, extortion by security agents at checkpoints as major causes. Will address anti-competitive practices by cartels that restrict supply. That's according to FCCPC. That's the lead story of this Nigerian newspaper this morning. The Nigerian Observer has this on its own front page today, and it is something related to business. Printing, advertising, rentals, others to see boom as campaign kicks off in Edo as governorship candidates to spend 17 billion naira on campaigns. Interesting times, isn't it? The details on the inside pages of the paper. Look at the New Telegraph. Naira abuse. Lawyers query EFCC's prosecutorial powers. Say only CBN police can prosecute culprits as offense, not economic crime. Well, here we go again. So I hear someone say. But that's a story you'll find the details of on the inside pages. Ondo 2024, Ayedatiwa coasts to victory as supporters of aggrieved aspirants storm party secretariat. Aspirants call for cancellation of election, allege irregularities. Details of that story on the inside pages. Page 23, to be precise. And those are some of the papers lined up for today.
Well, yeah, so economy, it's key. It should be, because, I mean, it's above all else to trounce politics. So while top manufacturers are just complaining and talking about listing their woes, as Vanguard highlights, how They're incurring this 266 billion naira losses in 1 year. So you just juxtapose that with what FG say they're doing, the kind of policies they are putting in place. I think one of the major ways that they can indeed measure whether or not the policies are yielding the kind of results they want or they desire, it's this kind of narrative, feedback coming through from those out there operating it, the private sector, the public sector, because you can't have a scenario wherein government agencies, they prioritize the revenue that they have to make, almost always competing against private concerns as though they were a business. So policies are there to ensure that government agencies raking much more money to the detriment of the private sector or private companies, then that's a minus. That they need no telling to know that that policy should be reviewed drastically since yesterday, as some may say. But this Nigeria also listed some of the highlights about inflation. They listed some of the FG's actions that are just contributory, direct impact why we are experiencing some of these challenges. Well, high cost of goods, everybody knows that, yeah, something needs to be done about that. And then erratic border closure, insecurity of farmers, extortion by security agents at checkpoints. One of the unfortunate ones was the killing of a businessman in, I think, Abia by a policeman who is said to have demanded bribe. So because the gentleman refused, shot him, rushed the gentleman to the hospital, but he couldn't make it. So those are the kind of things you see. We're hoping that the police say they will make the trial open, but something needs to be done to address those kind of things, the root cause. How do we have those kinds of policemen in the first place? How did they find their way into the system? So that is something that needs to be really, really reviewed. And then, much as it's good to see the FCCPC saying we'll address competitive practices by cartels that restrict supply, we're only hoping, we try and read between the lines, or read the story and hear from them a little more. We're hoping that it's not just by going to the shops and shutting them down. That is no way. I don't think that will address it. It's got to be like a systematic approach, system-wide approach, not just by a certain FCCPC. What capacity do they have? Is it only in Abuja or some of the other states, 2, 3 states, that this can happen? Do they have the capacity to ensure that all of these things happen? NAFDAC themselves are trying to ensure that they also develop the muscle. We know they've got capacity challenge in terms of the manpower. The will is there, but clearly, all these kind of narratives, FG should look at the feedback from all of these agencies, juxtapose them with your policy. That way you can know if you're taking 1 step forward or 3 backwards.
And, moving from, security there, and of course, talking about the economy there and the powers of the FCCPC and what it is that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Very important point to note right there, because, the prosecutorial powers of the FCCPC, something that has to be looked at. A lot of the times, like we saw in Abuja here, they negotiated, and then they're doing checks now. They say they go there every 2 weeks. They go to the shops that were closed every 2 weeks, to see if they are still carrying out those sharp practices. But I want you to talk a bit about security. This headline here from the Daily Trust newspaper: 2,583 Nigerians killed, 2,164 abducted in 3 months. In just 3 months. And this report, we're seeing from the National Security Advisor's Office. We have reduced casualty figures, says there are over 300 bandit warlords in the north. That is, for want of a better word, Chamberlain, it's crazy to think about 300 bandit warlords in northern Nigeria. How are you supposed to survive in such a place? Fleeing villagers storm Zamfara government house. It's gotten there. It's gotten there. Well, we'll be talking more on that from page 4 and page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper, by the way. But very worrisome situation that needs to be looked at. 300 bandit warlords, that's 300 interests. That's 300 people who are doing all kinds of things to get what they want. That's lawlessness from 300 warlords. It's a very worrisome figure. And I think as we go into the week, as we engage with security operatives throughout this week, that's something we should have at the back of our minds. 300 bandit warlords. That's an almost impossible situation. And this has gone on for too long. We've seen documentaries about it. We've seen people talk about it. We've had specials about it. It has gone on for too long. 300 is a very scary number of bandit warlords in a region. In the last
government, we had people who were on the program and they told us that some of these bandits go to markets with their sling of arms, AK-47, AK-49 on their shoulders. They go to the market, members of the community see them, they buy stuff in the market, go back home, they trade, they go back home. We were told that on this program, it's on record. So how was it that at that time, those kind of things were going on? What did they do about it? I know the former president also did say they should shoot certain persons who are found bearing illegal arms. Did anybody get any reports of any such thing happening? Because there are people who still bear arms in this country, who many say, look, they see them, but it appears as though the authorities look the other way. Can those things be allowed to continue?
And you know, Chamberlain, there's a reason why this bandit law was able to thrive. They thrive on poverty. There's root cause. You know, when we talk about insecurity in this country, one of the non-kinetic measures that have been, propagated by the military is the fact that you have to look at the root causes. The reason why they can walk around with their guns is because the people know them and maybe are receiving something from them.
Yeah, but is that tenable? What is the law? What are law enforcement agents doing about that? You can't be seen to come down hard on a certain group and then look the other way or give them a slap on the wrist. That's another group. So you know that will definitely not go very well in a society like ours.
Very, very, very touching words there. And, the concern that you have raised, Kayla, is no less important. And I'm just hoping that we all will be able to do what we need to do to get those things out of the way. I mean, isn't that why we have politicians in office? As Chamberlain would often say, that you got the job, so do the job. And by the way, speaking about doing the job, the front page of the Nigerian Observer this morning piques my interest, particularly in the light of the primaries that took place over the weekend. Printing, advertising, rentals, others to see boom as campaign kicks off in Edo. Don't forget that it also happened in Ondo State. Ondo State over the weekend. I think it was just yesterday that it was the counts, was done, and the governor, the incumbent governor, came tops at the primary in Ondo State. But look at this one. Governorship candidates to spend 17 billion naira on campaigns. So that is ongoing. And I guess who are the people that are going to be benefiting from it? You can see those in printing, advertising, rentals, and the like. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand is the law that allows them to do the spending. So who is going to be monitoring to ensure that the law is complied with? That's another thing as well, altogether. But Chamberlain, I found something right on the front page of the Nigerian Observer that you looked at earlier. The picture on the front page of, of this Nigerian newspaper that you looked at earlier. The picture of the young man who won, that picture right there, Tunde Onokoya, who set a world record for the longest time anyone is playing chess and winning. 58 long hours. Talk about Nigerians making Nigeria great in different parts of the world. I'll put that guy on that list any day. Chamberlain.
On that. So there you go. But let's also remind you some of the events to look out for today when you speak about security. The president, there's going to be this counter-terrorism summit that will be going on today in Abuja. So you've got persons like, the president, first of all, he's going to be there to open that counter-terrorism summit here in Abuja. It's an African counter-terrorism summit. So, and it's going to be with the support of the United Nations Office of Counter-Terrorism. They are the ones organizing this high-level one. So strengthening regional cooperation and institution building They say they want to address the evolving threat of terrorism. So that's part of what we expect to see play out today. So we'll hope, well, I know many will look to see that we'll get some direct impacts, direct results back home here, because we know we're grappling with those challenges. Yes, we acknowledge some of the narratives coming through from the NSA's office, but as you know, still some job to be done.
I mean, to take it away from summits and colloquiums and conferences.
You have to talk and plan.
But to move it from there to where we see it actually being implemented. That's where we are right now. They've started storming Government House in Zamfara, the people running away from insecurity. So it's best that they sort this out before we get to a situation where we cannot handle the problem.
Well, yeah, it's good. So if it's a safe haven, all government houses, people can go there. After all, what is the government house supposed to be for? Shelter for people. So if they have no other place,
it's the people's house.
Go there. If the government refuses, let them see what perhaps their aides have not told them. So it's not a bad idea, but I think the camera should also be there to capture it so that we all can see it. Because what did they say about the revolution? It will be televised.
You want to televise?
Oh dear. Okay, I didn't plan that. I didn't see that coming actually, but it just came. All right, so there you go. We're back in a moment. Stay on with us.